and welcome to Game Soup. Today we're playing SNES RPGs. This is part 3 of our classic analysis on SNES RPGs. I'm Ed.
This is Joe.
So we have here an underdog of the Final Fantasy series, probably my second favorite game in the series.
And my first favorite game
in the
series.
Favorite. Yeah. And we played this a lot together when we were younger. And we continue to play it every couple of years just to go back to it, because to us it has a lot of replay value.
Yeah, every like 5 to 10 years we want to go back to this one. So it's coming up on that.
Yeah, it is.
It's been probably a little over 5 years since the last time we played through it together. So this time we're probably going to wind up doing it on Game Soup.
I sure hope so. It'll be fun. So I'm always struck by this. Like, the graphical upgrade between 5 and 6, I guess between 4 and 5 isn't huge, but between 5 and 6 is very noticeable. But to me, because I played this game first, I guess there's a special place for it in my RPG gaming heart, so to speak. And as we talked about scope on the Final Fantasy VI Classic Analysis, as far as scope goes, this game is a lot more condensed and a lot more narrow. And it sort of feels like they were working up to Final Fantasy VI when they were making this game, the same as Final Fantasy IV felt like they were working up to this game. So this feels like a very logical progression in gameplay and storytelling. And
graphics.
And, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I wanted to show off the job and ability system here because that's really the meat of the game. And really, any RPG lives or dies by its battle mechanics or its customization system.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in battle.
Yeah.
In traditional JRPGs, at least.
So this is it's not all of the jobs, but most of the jobs. There are a couple secret ones. There's pretty much something for everybody here, and I think that's what gives the game such replay value. I know Final Fantasy VI has a lot of different espers you can equip and a lot of different spells to learn, but to me this is I love the feeling of learning abilities and equipping them on your characters and giving them all different jobs.
This is much more open-ended.
Yeah.
Than Final Fantasy VI.
This game does not hold your hand at all. No. Unless you use monks, then the game holds your hand for a while.
Yeah, there are definitely easier builds to beat the game with, but there's a lot more interesting ways to play the game than what appears to be more powerful on the surface. There's a lot of strange jobs, I guess I would say.
You could tackle it pretty much anyway. Actually, that reminds me. I mean, you could have 4 monks and plow through the game. The game is not as
well. You do need one white mage at least to heal, right?
A white mage, but then you give her the punching ability. So then you have a white mage that punches.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same. But one thing that kind of springs to mind is that, as you just said, there are so many jobs and so many abilities that it seems almost hard to balance, and certain combinations are definitely more powerful than others. Like on our last playthrough of this game, we just discovered that as a bard, you can pretty much berserk. It's confuse.
Charm.
Yeah, you can charm almost everything in the entire game, which makes the entire game trivial, right? But then if you try to go the classic like knight, white mage, black mage, and whatever you have, as your 4th character, it can be a lot harder. And the Guild Toss here, I used Guild Toss a couple times. It does ridiculous. It does 4,500 damage.
Cost you a gil though.
Yeah, it does cost you a gil.
You have to use your gil resource in battle, which is it's an interesting mechanic. Some games do that.
Yeah. So I mean,
we were talking about that in Goemon 4. That's another game for Super Nintendo where you can use your money as a resource. That's
really interesting. And it's if you really just want to plow through the game and you have a lot of money to spare from grinding, that's cool. It's going to be a really easy game for you. So what else of particular note here? I really love the music. This isn't the best place to talk about it because you can probably barely hear it. But the music for this game it is just as great to me as any other of the Final Fantasy games, the classic soundtracks.
This is probably my favorite soundtrack in the Final Fantasy series, actually, too.
Especially this track. I don't know. I love it. Like I said, I got a soft spot for it, so I'm kind of biased. But what else? So I don't know. It's your traditional RPG. You have character levels, but by and large, the job system is what's going to be dictating your progress here.
Right. Yeah. The job system is the biggest drawing point, I think, of the game, and this game really broke a lot of new ground for strategy in RPGs.
Yeah.
It's also very difficult. It's one of the most difficult RPGs of the era, and still today, it's a pretty difficult game, and you can really screw up your jobs.
Yeah.
If you choose the wrong jobs, you choose jobs that are weaker or jobs that don't work well together, you might wind up having to grind up other jobs to make up for your screw-ups.
And it's not easy. A lot of these abilities require a lot of grinding.
Right.
It takes a lot of ability points to level up certain jobs and abilities.
Yeah, you can see all these abilities here with the exclamation points. Those are abilities that this character has learned by leveling up other jobs. So you can see how he's a black mage right now, so he's leveling up his ability to use black magic. So he'll be able to use a higher level of black magic. See how it says there, level 6 black mage, so to the next level, 249 out of 450. So to get to level 7, he'll probably be able to use maybe the highest level of black magic in the game. I'm not sure.
I think level 7 is max for,
level 7,
magic.
Yeah.
But to get those extra 200 points, you might have to do 75 or 100 battles.
Yeah, each battle gives you experience points as well as ability points. Experience points do the traditional thing that you would expect. They just upgrade your base stats. They give you more hit points. But the ability points go into the current job that the character has equipped. So you wanna switch each player's job periodically just so that they can learn other abilities. But once they've learned an ability, you can choose one of the abilities to be their secondary ability. So you could have a black mage that has previously studied white magic and give him white magic. So you could have a character that can do both black magic and white magic.
Yeah, you pretty much just choose any 2 tropes of the RPG genre and you just combine them, and you can combine them on any character, which is nice.
Right. Then you have weird ones like dancer, so you can do a dance and they have different kinds of effects. They're kind of random in this game, so that's kind of like if you're lucky, if you feel lucky, you can play dancer, but you don't want to have like a whole party of dancers because then you're going to be relying too much on the RNG probably. And like you don't want to have too many bards, but having one bard is really good, so you can use Charm Song.
OP, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the more OP abilities in the game, but you don't have to play that way. You don't need a bard. You don't really need any specific job in the game. You could probably beat the game with any combination of jobs, but it would be very difficult for some of them.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult, and you'd probably have to do some grinding to get your level up to a higher point where you'd be able to make up for the lack of a balanced party.
Yeah, as many options as there are for jobs, it mostly pays off to just stick with what you've done in previous RPGs. You know, stick with maybe one tank, one healer, maybe DPS. You know, not in exactly those terms, but you know, in the sort of the 4-character party.
Yeah, this game does have sort of a rudimentary tank system. If you play as the knight character, you can give him protect, and he can block the attacks for characters that are about to die.
And so, to my knowledge, I think this is the first game, at least the first Square game, that uses the job system. And it's come back a couple times. Not as many times as I would like. I love this system. I think every Final Fantasy game in particular is sort of represented by its specific system.
Yeah.
And to me, this one is my favorite. Now, you can sort of tell that maybe they were doing the job system for the first time. They weren't sure exactly how to completely master it.
I think they almost nailed it though, really.
Yeah.
But the game is still very playable and very good.
Yeah. But you know, as we were talking about, there were a couple minor balance things. But at the same time, they give you these crazy classes like Chemist and Animal Tamer. You know, things that you would never see in any other game, and we haven't seen in any other game.
It's really interesting. Like, the first time I played through the game, I did kind of a standard. I did a lot of Knight, Monk, Black Mage, White Mage, pretty standard stuff, but every time we play through the game, now we always play through it together pretty much now, but every time we play through the game, we do something a little bit wackier, I think.
Yeah, it's more fun. Like, beating the game, the appeal here, at least to me, and hopefully for you as well, is even when you're finished the game, you're kind of incentivized to go back and choose a completely different job setup and a completely different ability setup because it plays like a completely different game. You know, there were a couple times where I did 2 monks and a healer and I don't know, something else like a ninja or something. You know, but you can go through it again as a magic sword. I think they call it a spell sword. This is actually a fan translation because this game was never released.
Spell sword, is it rune? It might be Rune Knight. I'm not really sure. Magic Knight, Rune Knight, something like that. But
yeah. But you can be a dedicated time magic user. You know, you can use haste and slow. And this is actually a little bit farther in the game. I wanted to show a part that was sort of in the middle because, you know, it doesn't really make sense to show the first 10 minutes of you're fighting a goblin. Big deal.
So these are the ultimate weapons in the game, and there's 12 different ones, and they're for different classes, basically. Like, each class can equip certain kinds of items. It's pretty standard for RPGs, but like the Berserker uses axes. A lot of different classes can use swords. Almost every class can use knives and daggers. So there's really there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of strategy to this game, and it's actually difficult, which I like when... I don't really like when an RPG is too easy, which a lot of RPGs now, in my opinion, are a little bit too easy and a little bit too... there's not as much room for the player to decide what kind of abilities they want to use, or the player to play in a different kind of style. There's more of a set path, and it's more linear as far as the progression of the characters go.
Yeah.
And in this game, it's almost infinite, the type of party you can make. And I really like that, and I really like the strategy in this game. And the difficulty is high, and you do have to adjust your playing to accommodate for the difficulty, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say.
I was just thinking as you were saying that, if you compare this to, if you've played Final Fantasy 13, that game has a really, really linear custom character progression system. You're basically following a linear path along their skill tree, so to speak. But at the same time, the way the game is made difficult is by changing your, quote, jobs during battle. So I think it's similar in a way, you know, like it's difficult because of the roles that your characters choose, but this game takes it so much further, and I feel like there's so much ground that you could cover in this game that Square chose to tune up the difficulty by and large, because you could easily make an overpowered build. But really, the most of the challenge comes from deciding what 4 different jobs you want at any one time. I was just gonna say something. I don't remember, but yeah.
I was gonna say a lot of the bosses in the game have multiple ways you can beat them. Like, right. So you feel clever. Like the bosses in this game, you don't just hit them and heal.
Yeah, you pretty much can't do that.
There's strategies for almost every boss. Either they're weak to a specific kind of magic, or you need to use a certain kind of weapon on them, maybe even. And some of them have attacks that are a little bit weird, I guess. A little bit. They're not just. You have to use some sort of special strategy, I guess, to beat them.
You're never just trading hits. That's actually, that you reminded me of what I was going to say, was exactly that. When you're fighting bosses, a lot of times you'll find it to your benefit to be changing jobs frequently. And of course that means going into the dungeons and getting some ability points so you can get those skills that you need. But yeah, the bosses in this game, you're never just going into battle, unless you're a party of 4 monks and a white mage.
Sometimes, even that though, you can have some difficulty on some of the bosses. There's almost every time I encountered a boss in this game, especially my first time playing, I died. Yeah. And you don't find that a lot in modern RPGs. Usually you get to a boss, and even if it's hard, you usually wind up beating it the first time, even if it's tuned to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, this game does not.
But in this game, yeah, you really have to learn their attacks and learn their weaknesses and figure out how you're going to beat them, especially if you're not using a walkthrough, and especially if it's your first time playing the game.
Yeah. Yeah, this game, of all the Final Fantasies that I've played, is the hardest to do without any sort of outside knowledge, which, you know, there really wasn't much of it in 92 when this game came out?
Yeah, the Japanese version, I think, was 92. It didn't come out in the States for a long time, but you could get it on a ROM, you know,
of course,
back in the 90s. So.
So yeah, I always had a dedicated time magic user here, even though that seems like a waste of a party member. I always felt it was really important.
No, time magic is one of the most OP things, because you get haste.
Yeah, I always used haste on all my characters and tried to slow everything.
Yeah, haste. I mean, me and Ed have we may not have the most optimal party setup, because we haven't really done a lot of research and looked up the min-maxing in the game, but we figured out some of the things that are almost broken or that are very powerful.
Yeah, and you know, every player can choose their own unique setup and go with it, and if they like it, that's great. You know, the game pretty much has something for everybody in terms of jobs. So that's Final Fantasy V.
Yeah, we could probably go on about Final Fantasy V for hours. I feel like we mostly just talked about the job system, but that's kind of the meat of the game.
Yeah. So that's really the draw.
LP coming up for Final Fantasy V sometime in the next year or two, I guess.
Who knows? Keep an eye out for that. So our second and final game here in this episode is Breath of Fire 2. So do you want to take the reins on this one, Joe? Because I know very little about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about it. It's Capcom. Came out in 94, right?
Oh yeah,
I looked it up, right? Yeah, 94. And the graphics are pretty great. The character design is one of the things that drew me to this game. I actually played it for the Game Boy Advance before I played it for Super Nintendo. I never bought it for Super Nintendo. So the version that you did for this episode is the Super Nintendo version, so it might differ a little bit, but the combat system is not quite as deep as a game like Final Fantasy V or even Final Fantasy VI maybe. But the way the characters are drawn is charming, and the story is fun, and it's a little bit more linear, I guess, as far as the character progression goes and the level up system goes. But you can switch between different characters, but they're all pretty much fixed with their progression. You can't change their jobs or choose a lot of varying abilities for them.
Yeah, in my very limited experience, this game seems to be traditional all the way. Like a very, very traditional RPG. Maybe that's not the case later on, but
yeah, it's pretty traditional, pretty much.
Which is not a bad thing at all.
It's pretty standard. It just has really nice graphics, and it has a cool story. I don't know. I mean, we've talked so much about RPGs and in the past few episodes.
But I mean, I look at this game and then I compare it to the games that we've done in past episodes, like Mario RPG and Final Fantasy V and VI, and even Earthbound. And none of those are really traditional RPGs in the sense that, like, you know what I'm saying? They all have either amazing progression systems or Mario RPG just looks totally different. But all of those games are unique in one particular way or another. And so, at least on first glance, I don't know what the draw is here. And maybe it's just it's just a strong traditional RPG, which is fine.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it was. So if you're going to go back and play Super Nintendo RPGs, number 1, Super Mario RPG.
Oh yeah.
Number 2, Chrono Trigger.
Oh yeah.
Number 3, I'd probably say, I mean, if I was going to pick it, I would say Final Fantasy V, but Final Fantasy VI might be, you might learn a little, I don't know. Final Fantasy V and 6 is a toss-up for number 3.
Yeah, I mean, everyone else that I know seems to love Final Fantasy VI more, and I don't know, I have a sneaking suspicion that it's based on whichever one you played first. Because for a long time I liked Final Fantasy VIII more than 7, because I played that one first. But, it's really hard to be objective about this kind of stuff, Yeah. But for sure, Chrono Trigger is up there, Mario RPG as well.
We got like a grayscale here, I guess, because this is like in the past. It's been a long time since I played this game, so I might not have as much to say as I would have liked.
And you can see that I was going to look for that other character and I couldn't find her. I was just walking around, opening up all the doors.
That's what I wanted to talk about in this game. You don't know where the fuck to go.
In fact, the entire time that I was recording, I only recorded like 10 minutes of this. The entire time I was completely aimless. I didn't know where to go.
Actually, this game is pretty much an extreme example of not knowing where to go next. So if you're gonna play this game, I'd still recommend it, but do not do it without a walkthrough. And even with a walkthrough, I remember being stuck in places.
Really?
Yeah, like I couldn't figure out exactly where I was in the progression of the story.
So here's my first nitpick. For the first thing, the controls, I mean, control in RPG is not critical, but the controls feel really stiff. When you're on the overworld, if you walk into a tree, you just stop. It'd be really nice if you could just walk through those. Like, in other RPGs, if there's forest on the overworld, you can just walk right through it. Not in this game. And even in towns, it feels really stiff, It's not 8-directional, it's 4-directional, like Final Fantasy 5 and 6. But I don't know, just something about it, to me, feels a little bit off.
Yeah.
And this is cool. I like that they're full models of the characters and everything.
Yeah, the attack animations in this game are pretty awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, you can see here I don't really know where I'm going.
Yeah, there's a lot of aimlessness in this one.
Look out for hoodlums, and what does that mean? I don't know. I guess I should play the whole game and find out, really. I shouldn't complain too much. But one thing I will complain about here is these menus. ATC. Does that mean attack? And dare. What is dare? And SPL means spell? Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of truncated there.
They're really, everything is abbreviated to fit on screen. And it's really just a nitpick of mine. I absolutely hate that kind of thing. And Final Fantasy V does that a little bit as well. And even that still sort of irks me, but it's very minor.
So I guess the main draws of this, like we said before, are just colorful, good graphics, and a pretty cool story. And you're going to need a walkthrough if you want to play through it without being frustrated.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess that's about it for Breath of Fire 2, unless you have something else.
Nothing.
You wanted to talk about it.
No, Nothing in particular. I really like the overworld I mean, all the graphics in this game actually are really nice. There's a lot of really good color, like a lot of rich color. And 2 of the characters have blue hair, and 2 of them have red hair. Lots of color. Why do they both have blue hair? I don't know. I guess I gotta play through the game on my own time. But, no, nothing specific. Other than that. Did we cover... Is there anything else? I think we pretty much covered everything about it.
So we're going to be moving on to Sega Saturn games, PlayStation games, and 64 games. We're going to move on to that era next. I think this will be the last episode for Super Nintendo games.
Yeah, and if you feel like we missed anything, either with Breath of Fire 2 or with any of the other games we've covered on the SNES RPGs, be sure to let us know. We'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah.
And if Breath of Fire 2 is one of your favorite games, tell us why we're wrong. Because I love to be proved wrong. I love to learn what other people think and to learn, a new perspective. So, hit us up. Tell us something we don't know.
I'm sure we also missed one of your favorite RPGs.
Yeah,
like Seiken Densetsu 3 or Secret of Mana.
Oh yeah, there were a ton of other games.
Yeah, there was a ton of games we were trying to pick from. I kind of wish we did Secret of Mana, but
maybe
someday, just because it's different. It's more of an action RPG than the other games we covered, but at some point we'll probably cover it on the show on one of our series.
I would really like to, ideally, in a world where we had all the time in the world to record, I would like to do Illusion of Gaia, but because I feel like that's a good game. It's not a perfect game by any means, and there's a lot you can learn from it. And that, again, is its own unique form of art. It's like an action RPG, top-down action, sort of like Secret of Mana.
Yeah, they're similar in style. They even control in a similar way.
Yeah.
But I think Secret of Mana is a little bit more nostalgia, and it's a little bit better game.
Yeah, and I haven't spent enough time with that to know either way. But, from what I've heard, everybody loves it, pretty much. So yeah, like you said, I guess we'll leave it here with SNES RPGs for now. But yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Dislike it if you hated this video. That's cool. I mean,
leave us a thumbs down. We could use some of those.
Be honest. I mean, it helps to. You want to check your humility. I'm saying like
humility.
Humility. That's the word. Yeah. Keep us humble. W fruit.
Yeah, there's too many abbreviations.
That's what really killed me. Yeah.
Anyway, we were wrapping up though, so maybe we
okay.
Cut it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on SNES RPGs. It's really hard to say that. SNES RPGs Part 3 here on Game Soup.